one of the things that happened with this movie is the basketball scenes. Just him firing shots against the backboard and screaming, "Let it rain, rain dance."
White chocolate!
Calling the guy Sasquatch.
When
Then Ben Stiller asked for the switch. He's like, no, I've figured out this guy's moves. I can't switch.
Can we switch? Oh, I'd rather not, dude. I just found out how to cover this man right here.
His bat, it's just gonna live on and on and on now.
I think there's just like something incredibly recognizable about that character of the guy who's just like, I'm a baller for real. My shirt is too tight and I am screaming on the pickup court about how good I am and I suck. I just absolutely suck. So it can be applied to like when, I don't know, James Harden throws up a 2 for 17
right.
in a playoff game, exactly.
Raindrops! Old school!
Was Philip Seymour Hoffman actually good at basketball? I think there's signs that he was.
So
there's a coordination that you could tell he's intentionally tanking the shooting.
He kind of is like an athlete or like a dancer in movies, though. Like if you look at like Talented Mr. Ripley when he first shows up and he drives up and he hops out of the car and he runs towards the restaurant. Like he had a kind of like a grace. He had like a dancer's grace to him. So even in this comic part where he's being a bad athlete, he's kind of mesmerizing to watch.
He's definitely not a bad athlete.
You can see him move. He can run around. Like he played baseball and he wrestled as a kid. Like you can see he knows how to handle himself.
It's Chris Farley-esque.
Very much. Yeah. Very much. He's got like a grace in all of his clumsiness.
The fact that Hoffman was just so great in this, and it's such like a special, unique Hoffman performance, turned this movie into something else. And now it's like almost a classic, which is crazy because it's like a generic Ben Stiller rom-com for the most part with this insane Philip Seymour Hoffman performance in it.
Yeah, I think it's a solid comedy of its era that happens to have basically rocket fuel inside of it in the form of Philip Seymour Hoffman. And I wonder if we would have seen it in quite the same way if he hadn't tragically died when he did. But because now you look at like every Hoffman performance and you're like, what can we cherish about this? What did we overlook about this? Why didn't we celebrate this in time the way that we deserve to? But he's doing something that he almost never really did again, which was just like pure, broad studio comedy. Like he really did not do very much of that. He's often funny in movies, but from the very first moment you see him in this movie, he's doing a pratfall. Like he's doing a Farrelly Brothers gag. And so, this is the one time when you can really lift him up and be like, he could have been also Jim Carrey if you wanted to be. Well,
you're the world's preeminent Phil Hoffman expert.
Am I?
You've done an entire Phil Hoffman podcast.
I did.
You've written about him. No, but I think a lot of people loved him, including me, but I think you probably loved him the most.
He was my favorite actor.
I think one of the things I love about this movie is it's the equivalent of, I don't know, if you took LeBron James in 2013 and you just put him on a college basketball team for like 10-minute stretches.
But it would be like if you put him on a college football team. Like it's not, because this isn't.
Yeah, true, you're right.
This isn't like
he was just
sport.
a wide receiver and he was like the best wide receiver in college football. And you're like, what? So he's basically doing this part that has existed in rom-coms for the entire time we've had rom-coms. And in a different universe, it's a Jack Black part.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
I wonder if they even thought about him for this part.
Yeah, he's probably the second call if they couldn't get Hoffman.
Ben Stiller did a movie with Jack Black in this same year, actually. A movie called Envy.
Right. Galifianakis in The Hangover is another example of this, where it's actually somebody a little overqualified to be in the part. This is the most overqualified I think an actor can be for a movie. But he did this a few times in his career, which is one of the cool things about his career. Like, he's just in Twister randomly.
Yep.
He's the prep school kid in Son of a Woman. He's Scotty J at Boogie Nights. Then you flip the other side. He's in Magnolia with like the kind of the most nothing part in the movie, but makes the most of it. And this has just seemed like what drove him. I just want to do this weird part, this weird part.
You get the impression, I mean, a lot of those roles you just mentioned were when he was still trying to make it as a movie actor. You know, like in Twister, he's still coming up. He's not a character actor yet. People don't even know who he is. At this point in his career, he's pretty established as Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sure how much of this was for the money and how much of it was that he liked movies like this. And, you know, we know, like, for example, his buddy Paul Thomas Anderson loves Adam Sandler, loves broad studio comedies.
Yeah.
You know, like that's some of his favorite stuff. You could imagine them bonding over movies like this. So the chance to get to do a movie like this is not that surprising. I mean, 2 years later, he's in a Mission Impossible movie. Same thing. It's like they put a battery in the back of that movie by putting the world's greatest actor in a villain part. So he had a good sense of how to use his tools in mainstream stuff.
Yeah, because he does Red Dragon in 2002, which was one of his first. This feels like slightly like a paycheck role.
Yeah.
But he's still good in it.
Yeah.
So like every 2 years he would do one of those. So he does Along Came Polly, which he turns into more than a paycheck. I think it's probably one of his most beloved.
He walks away with the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Mission Impossible 3. And then ironically, the last 2 movies on his IMDb are Hunger Games movies, which even in the Hunger Games, he jumps out of every scene.
100%. He has the greatest character name of all time in that movie, Plutarch Heavensby, which I fucking love. I've always loved that name. And yeah, it's a much more controlled performance, that last one. And it is exactly what we're talking about, where he's like, I'm sure the money was good for that one. It's a huge franchise. It was like the conclusion of that franchise. And it's a really important part. He's like the game maker. But it's weird that that's how things ended for him. You know, somebody who was in so many great movies, but doing a very similar thing, always playing very rarely at the center. Always just left of center to the leading man.
Yeah. Well, this one, he comes in, he falls down, he's eating wedding cake icing, and just immediately it's the movie I want to be with the whole time.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of pops in and out. It's like Paul George in a Clippers playoff game.
I believe you
compared
Paul George
to a
cat.
It's Paul George just jumping in your lap to go
Phil
to the
Hoffman's
garage.
like a cat in this movie. And he's back. He's popped
back.
in the room.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The funniest person of the year is back.
Yeah, I love Sandy Lyle.